a well-known instructor in Alberta and everywhere. And he is a scholar. And tonight he's going to be introduced properly by my colleague, Dr. Kwame Adam. So I want to welcome everybody, and I will let Dr. Adam continue with this introduction of this session tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Michelle. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's presentation. As you said, I'm Dr. Kwame Adum, an Associate Professor of Business with the School of Business at Behrman University. Before I introduce the speaker for tonight, let me say a few words about Behrman. The School of Business has produced excellent graduates for decades and continue to do so. Our graduates are employed as senior managers, accountants, investing instructors, entrepreneurs, auditors, investors, financial managers, lawyers, recruiters, real estate investors, marketers, and so on. Consistently, we receive positive feedback from employers of our graduates, and this is a clear demonstration that graduates are given high performance at wherever they find themselves, which is a very good credit for the School of Business. As part of our commitment to developing businesses in the Lacombe community and the surrounding areas, the School of Business recently established the Small Business Center to provide incubation or support services to existing SMEs and to promote entrepreneurship within the central Alberta area. Edge Marketing is thus far the lead sponsor of our Small Business Center, and we're taking this opportunity to also invite other philanthropists to come to help the Business Center to grow it to become a meaningful resource for businesses in this area. Now, let me say a few words again about the presenter for tonight. Our speaker for this evening is someone who needs no introduction for me, but for the sake of our new students and others who are joining from across the globe, I would like to introduce our presenter. He's Dr. Robert Opoku, is a professor of marketing. He's the lead marketing instructor at Donald School of Business, Red Deer College. He's also the owner and the lead consultant at Fredma Business Services Incorporated, an Alberta-based strategy consulting, training and research boutique. His academic pursuit and working career have resulted in the privilege of living, consulting, teaching, and developing working career in 4 continents, namely Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America. Dr. Opoku has a PhD in marketing with specialization in e-commerce. He's also a certified e-commerce consultant and a member of Chartered Institute of Marketing UK. Because of time limitation, I will leave the intro here, and I present to you Dr. Robert Opoku as this evening's speaker. Dr. Opoku, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Kwame. And I always love to be around Behrman students. It's my second home. I love it. Whatever you guys do, I really appreciate. And for tonight, I think my job is clear cut. I just want to talk about, or I'll be having a conversation with you around the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on consumer behavior, and more specifically, what small businesses should know. I think this is a very interesting sphere that we all have to visit or have to interrogate as people who are interested in small businesses. And I appreciate the Small Business Center of Behrman University putting this presentation and this celebration together. And I think it gives a platform for us to have some conversation around the importance of small businesses and the role they play in our ecosystem. Yeah, so before I start my presentation, I would like to indicate that I am presenting from the Treaty 7 and 6 lands. And we need to understand that these folks own this place before some of us joined in. So we appreciate them giving us a space to occupy and also living side by side with us. So the agenda for tonight hovers around these pieces. First, I will try to introduce the subject matter, which is the consumer behavior. Some people might be wondering, what is this animal called consumer behavior? And then we will try to unpack the effects of this pandemic on consumption and also consumer behavior. And then we will look at SME's key takeaways from the COVID-19 effects. And what does this mean to SME brands? And of course, we will also revisit the impact of the COVID-19 changes on these SME brands and why this impact matters for our small businesses that we have. These are businesses that hold our economy, and we all have to be very appreciative of whatever they bring to the table. And of course, I will attempt to conclude my presentation tonight. Good. So when it comes to consumer behavior, to bring it down, to break this subject matter of consumer behavior, in fact, it refers to the study of individuals or groups who are in the process of searching something to buy, something to use, something to evaluate, and something to dispose of. And that could be a product or a service, ultimately to satisfy their needs. So this is where we are coming from, technically. So this is where we are looking at the impact of COVID-19 on the things that we are purchasing, the things that we are using, how we are evaluating these products and services that we patronize, and also how we dispose of these products. But we need to remember that consumers develop habits over time about what they consume, when, and where. So time is a big factor in terms of our consumption behavior. The more we consume something, the more we continue to like it. And this can happen at a certain point in time in our lives or at certain places. For example, I'm a Ghanaian, originally a Ghanaian, but my consumption has changed because of what I am. I eat the potatoes. Yeah, I eat the poutine. I eat some of the foods that I'm not used to. So consumption can change over time. That is the point we want to make here. And depending on what we can consume and where and when. So history has shown that times of crisis often result in major transformations when it comes to consumer behavior. And we've seen these things during the world wars, where people change their consumption behavior. And that's where people also innovate and bring something to life when it comes to consumption. So whilst consumption is habitual, it's also contextual. So we can situate consumption in a context. And in fact, there are 4 major contexts which govern or disrupt our consumer habits. The first one could be the change in our social context. And that could be life event changes such as marriage. So when you marry, and of course you procreate, you even change the car you drive. Some of us used to drive minivans because we have families, right? So having children, and sometimes we moving to some cities. If you move to Vancouver, some of us are driving these huge machines. Maybe you might not drive those machines over there, or you are living in big houses here, but you can afford that in Toronto or maybe in Vancouver. Sometimes there are also what we call technological changes. And a very good example is our smartphones. And of course, how internet has been a disruptive agent in our lives. It has changed our consumption, the way we even consume content and information. And also look at e-commerce, how we can buy conveniently by sitting behind a computer and you get all these things purchased. So technology can also impact our consumption behavior. sometimes there are changes in rules and regulations. For example, consumption of smoking. There are rules and regulations concerning smoking. You can't smoke in certain areas. Some people can buy cigarettes. So that area is heavily regulated. Alcohol, same thing. And also sometimes you firearms. There is a big debate around this even in Canada, the way we consume these things. We can't just consume them because there are rules and regulations. There are rules of engagement if you want to be part of this. Sometimes it's about ad hoc natural disasters that we can control. It could be something like earthquakes, hurricanes, and the global pandemic like COVID-19. So these natural disasters can also change our consumption behavior. So we're going to put a spotlight on COVID-19 this time around, which is a natural disaster that we are facing as a country. People will argue out. Some people think that it's an artificial disaster. But whatever you sit on this, at least for this presentation, let's look at it from that angle. Yeah, so when we look at COVID-19, the impact of COVID-19 on our consumption behavior, there was this beautiful paper that was put together by Fabius and others. And they are saying that consumers have seen changes to every aspect of their lives because of this COVID-19 pandemic. And then I don't want to bore you with this kind of information because some of us know these things already. Its impact on work, the rise of unemployment in certain areas, also on-the-go consumption, and also remote working. This has been areas, because of the COVID, has been impacted, our working life. Learning has also been impacted, spend on learning, the issues have gone up. Most people are home and they want to learn something new. Communication and information has also been impacted. Travel and mobility has seriously been impacted. Most of our travel and tour organizations, some of them are struggling because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Shopping and consumption has also changed our shopping behavior. Most people are now buying, on the internet. And life at home, nesting at home, surge in online browsing is over the place. People sit in the comfort of their homes, they are bored and they figure out the computer is the only way, internet is the only source of entertainment. Play and entertainment. Preference for digital entertainment has risen. Home theaters are now being sold all over the place. There's a shift from cinema to streaming in our own homes. So Netflix is a big has registered a net gain, in this sphere. And of course, our health and mental well-being has also been affected by this COVID-19. So Murphy, Knight, and Strong put up a very strong paper. And these are guys, working for a consulting firm, big time. They are saying that the impact of COVID-19 on business abilities and industries can be divided into 4 categories. So some of these industries can be classified as what we call the change heroes. These are industries that have a strong positive COVID-19 effect on them. So if you look at the food delivery platforms, the groceries, the personal care, they have to adapt their product offerings radically to the current situation. So if you are delivering food, you want to make sure that you respect all the protocols, the way you handle the food, all those things will change. Hospitals, you want to make sure that when you go in there, you are wearing masks, and then you need to stand somewhere, and people troop in, where numbers are monitored. So these are all areas COVID-19 has hit, and this industry is called change heroes. We also have wave surfers. These are industries that perceive positive effects from the crisis, but no need to change their product offerings. And this could be banks. Banks, whatever they are delivering is the same. They've not changed their product. Some of them are online, and some of them, those that are face-to-face, you can go to the branch, and nothing has drastically changed. And these industry or these companies are surfing, more or less. We have restructurers, but they do not have the option to enjoy the change in behavior. They are negatively affected by the crisis while their product offering stay the same, like print media. So wherever you are getting your news stays the same, sharing economy, right? So if you are Turu.com, Uber, these are the companies that we are talking about here. So they have negatively affected people. People are not patronizing their products anymore. People are sitting in the comfort of their home. They are not traveling. So need to restructure their business. We also have the redefiners. These are companies that are registering strong negative impact of the COVID-19, and their business activities and abilities have changed, and they also have to change their product offering. Travel and tours, fashion industry, food and service. These are industries that have been highly hit by the COVID-19. So the point we want to make here is that when you look at the impact of COVID-19 on businesses, this is on a spectrum, and this is what we need to understand. So not every business is affected, on the same length or on the same wavelength. So we need to understand when we make a case as to this impact we are talking about. But what are some of the immediate effects of COVID-19 pandemic on our consumption and also consumer behavior? As these points will resonate, and this is something that Seth 2020, this researcher, this article was published in Journal of Business Research in 2020, and Seth argues that there's effect of COVID-19 on consumption and behavior because it's impacting on people in some of these areas. And you all remember the hoarding, the toilet rolls, right? We all wanted to hoard these things because you didn't know what was happening. People were improvising, even when it comes to detergent, disinfectants. People were using their own alcohol to make their own disinfectants. There's also pent-up demand. The moment the doors are open a little bit, you see people flooding in, going to the cinema, buying products and services. So there's that pent-up demand. That's like an effect. Embracing digital technology. Some of us have learned new ways of doing things online. And store counts, right? So stores are making a big wave out of this COVID-19. Our stores are rich. Right now, they are even richer because you all have to eat whilst at home. And there's the blurring of work-life boundaries. So now some of us are working remotely. Some of us are working in the office, 50-50, and all these things are blended. And this is the life that COVID-19 has brought onto us. And there is this reunions with families and then friends. People have ample time to touch base and find out how their family members and friends are doing. And some people have discovered new talents. They are home, some of them are weaving, some of them are doing all sorts of things. And if you go to Etsy, ESTY.com, where people who are creative can put their information or whatever they are producing on that platform is flooded with all sort of craft because people have discovered their talent now and they want to make sure that they share with other people. So these are some of the impacts of COVID-19 on our consumption and behavior. So, but right now, if you look at it critically, consumers' primary concerns right now include their family health. You want to make sure that when their kids come home, you want to make sure that they are good and they can go to school the next day. So although COVID-19 has impacted most of our lives, there are some primary concerns that consumers always think about. So if you are in that particular industry, you want to make sure that you do it and do it well because you have a role to play in the life of people. Family health is a big thing. It's a concern for consumers. Access to food, we all have to eat unless we can survive. Access to healthcare. We need jobs and you need to make sure that we have the money to cater for our families and also our mental health. So these are the major concerns of people right now. And consumers have significantly changed their shopping habits because the initial run on food is slowing and there is a sudden downturn in discretionary shopping. We all want to save And so people are saving right now because they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So almost half of consumers expect to retain change behaviors after the outbreak has ended. So this is something that small business will have to know, because people are not going to go back suddenly. So those things that we are experiencing right now will remain for a considerable period of time until people begin, to rethink and then change their behavior. So what are some of the effects of COVID-19 on demographics? Research has indicated that young consumers are adapting quickly to this new reality. So younger consumers are more likely to have to change their shopping habits during the crisis, whilst older consumers have remained more faithful to their old habits, right? So our old folks are still sitting at home. They want people to help them out, but the young people are now buying some of these things online. So Canadians are becoming more aware of the importance of buying local. So this is something that COVID-19 has left us with. So if you are a small business owner, and then you have a local content, now is the time for you, as part of your advertising, as part of your marketing communication, hammer the essence of being local, because consumers, based on this pandemic, are looking to buy something more local. So more and more consumers are buying local, and Canadians say they are buying local products more often or for the first time. And this is coming from one of the top marketing research companies here in Canada. There is what we call decrease in brand loyalty. And because of the COVID-19 supply chain disruptions, people don't find their brands that they are loyal to. So anytime they visit the shelves, whatever is there, they pick it up. I quite remember during, the heat of things, I went in to buy, toilet rolls, toilet paper, and I ended up buying the one for ATVs, because these are very light, because you have to use them whilst you are on board ATV, so that you don't want to clog your water closet. But there was nothing on the shelf, and I had to pick it up. So it wasn't about brand loyalty anymore. It wasn't about Thrill or any of these brands that we know. It's about what is available. So during these times, consumers are not concerned about brand loyalty. They pick up or they take whatever is available. So when consumers could not find their preferred product from their preferred, SME, they change their shopping behavior. So many consumers will try a different brand or shop at a different SME during the crisis. So if you are SME, this is the time for you to leverage sampling, if possible. If there is any way that you can get consumers to try your product, because they are changing their allegiance. So this is some opportunity for you to tap into it and make it big, because consumers want to try new things during this time. And some of the brands that they are accustomed to are not available on the shelf anyway. So they want to try something new because of these supply chain disruptions. And if you look at the auto industry, if you order a car now, from Toyota, it's going to take you maybe 3-4 months before you can get it because of the supply chain issues. And people want to drive. So they go around buying anything that they see, over the place. And so that is a reality we are facing. And as SMEs, we need to tap into this, because this is an opportunity for us to showcase our brand and get people to try our products. And then from there, everything will change. So what are the takeaways from the COVID-19 effects as far as our SMEs are concerned? We all have to remember that consumers have moved or are moving online rapidly. So if you are not online, you are missing a big chunk. So because since March 2020, the day WHO, World Health Organization, declared COVID-19 a global pandemic, Canadian e-commerce sales have doubled. So remember, you have to be part of this. So consumers are still out there, but they are just transitioning their spend to the online sphere. So you want to make sure that your e-commerce platform is working, and you have all it takes to make consumers fulfill order on any online platform. So SMEs should increase their online presence, bolster their delivering options, and make it easier for customers to shop online. So if you are still not being able to figure out how easy it is to get your customer to shop online, you are in trouble as SME. People are also saving more money. So whilst some consumers are undoubtedly tightening their belts out of necessity, more are embracing frugality as a choice. So some of them are keeping their money because they don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. So how this impacts your business will very much depend on the product you sell anyway. So what is the takeaway here? We need to provide, as SMEs, provide discounts so that people will take advantage of that to buy our products. We need to provide deals and also payment plans. So some of these retailers, you get to hear them pick their product today and pay in 2 years' time. So all these deals are coming in because they know that people don't want to spend. So if you are SME, make sure you leverage some of these marketing promotion tools, sales promotion tools, to entice your customers to do business with you. Because a pandemic naturally lends itself to cautious consumer behavior. People don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. People are sitting on tenterhooks. So innovative businesses will still have to do well. So we need to find a way in making sure we get this foot traffic into our online store or into our face-to-face shops so that consumers can spend the monies that they are saving. There is higher standards when it comes to during this pandemic. So this is not a time for us to be pushing customers to buy our products. Sales will not work in this particular time because people don't want to be pushed around. They are very, very cautious as to why they buy. So we don't have to in any way display any lack of empathy for the consumers that are struggling anyway. They have all sort of stress to deal with. So you don't want to add extra stress on these consumers. Make your buying experience as smooth as possible to these customers. So instead, consumers are expecting more from these companies. The messaging here has been that we are all in this together. So we need to find a way to include this as part of our messaging, that you are for the customers, we are all here together. We want to make sure that this pandemic, is blown out and we all enjoy our life. So we need to be part of that conversation because consumers expect those higher standards from us. We don't have to make things worse for these consumers. So profit remains the key, but businesses are increasingly expected to play a supporting role in our communities. So if you are engaged in any CSR, this is not a time for you to stop. In fact, this is a time for you to do it more because consumers expect more of these things. Consumers will remember actions taken now when it's time to spend tomorrow. So we need to remember that any action that we take today, consumers will reflect on it, and the law of reciprocity is key in business. If you help them today, they are likely to help you tomorrow. So this is something for our SMEs. Make sure if you have any CSR program in place, make sure we execute it because consumers are looking up to us. They want us to meet those high standards that we've set for ourselves. Consumer entertainment habits have also shifted. We used to have the bars, we used to have the nightclubs, we need to have the cinemas, and people were taking trips to movie theaters. But now consumers are turning their attention to new forms of entertainment. Right. So now we have our home theaters, people are watching movies, entertainment in their homes. So we need to make sure that this change is largely being driven by our millennials and the Gen Z consumers, representing something invaluable food for thought for our SMEs. So this is an opportunity for us to tap into that market because their consumption behavior has changed and we need to find a way to grab their attention. So any SME worth its salt should look at how they are allocating their marketing spend going forward. So if you have a limited marketing budget for your SME marketing operations, you want to make sure that you spend it wisely and find a way to reach out to younger audience because they hold the key in this pandemic. So consider what platforms your target audience most frequent, and get imaginative with your messaging, something that will resonate with these folks as we battle this pandemic. So what does that mean to SME brands? COVID-19 means SME brands need to be flexible, nimble, agile and also adapt to change. So we can't be that hard. We can't be something that is not malleable. We need to be very flexible to meet the day-to-day changes or frustrations that our customers are going through. So when the context and pattern in which people's lives change, SMEs should also ask themselves, how can I add value considering the new reality that we are facing? Consumers are struggling. So we need to find a way to figure out where do we meet these consumers on their journey in life. So as they adapt, we also have to adapt as a brand. And remember, when we adapt and support these consumers, they will also look up to us when things get better. So we need to support them. So if you look at Pantry, Potbelly, this is a company based in the US. And this is a typical example of how they have added value to their customers. So they now sell direct to consumers. This US sandwich shop, Potbelly, Pantry, reacted to the pandemic by selling its ingredients in a kit box so consumers can make their own sandwiches at home. So this is the adaptability that we are talking about. We need to be very nimble and make sure we meet consumers where they are on this pandemic journey. So this company is, other than selling the sandwich, they package all the ingredients in a kit box, send it to consumers so that in their own comfort, they can make their own sandwiches. Because consumers have some time to spend at home and they want to engage in something that will also create that experience that they are looking for. So sending the package to them, they can make their own sandwich at home, and that adds value to the life of these consumers. So this is a typical example of how some companies are innovating in making sure they meet consumers, on this journey. What is the impact of the COVID-19 changes on SME brands? We all have to remember that consumer brand relationships are likely to be permanently changed as a result of this pandemic. We've already talked about it. Some of them we will not get them back. So SMEs will have to re-examine how they build trust with their customer in this new reality. Because sometimes consumers are not looking for loyalty. They just want to take something that is on the shelf. So how do we do that? How can that affect our brands? If we're able to put our brand together, making some heavy investment in building our brands, now that brand loyalty is eroding, how do we do things differently? This is something that SMEs will have to think about. SME brands can also demonstrate and articulate their value and adapt to rapidly changing consumer demands as they spend more time at home and rely on digital, because these SMEs will be the most successful if we adapt to the new reality. Consumers are at home and they are also using, leveraging the digital platform. So SME brands, we need to make sure that we take advantage of the situation where consumers are at home, and then also the opportunity for them to leverage the digital environment when it comes to their consumption behavior. Consumers are also more likely to return to the mainstream SME brands that are more familiar as they look for some semblance of security in this fast changing scenario. So consumers are also apt. They are looking for SME brands that are familiar. So that's why building your brand around this local messaging is key, so that you become a security. So they are not thinking about products coming from China or elsewhere in Africa, but they know that the product is in their neighborhood and they can always grab it. So we need to have that messaging clear, that you are there for them. It's something local, and anytime they blink, you are there to support them. So that kind of messaging will resonate with consumers as you grow your brand. So it's also possible that SME brands with high social responsibility positioning may be subject to punishment by consumers if they are perceived to have betrayed their positioning promises during the pandemic. So if you have any CSR agenda that you've been pursuing for years, you've been helping the local, maybe food bank, you've been helping the local, whatever it is, continue doing those things, because if you stop those things, consumers will punish you after the pandemic. And a deeper understanding and knowing your consumers will be critical to successful one-to-one marketing efforts. Consumers are being impacted by the COVID-19, differently. We are all on a different spectrum. So when consumers come to us or customers come to us, we need to understand where they are coming from. Where are they on that map, so that we can support them wherever they are. So don't treat customers en bloc. Don't treat customers as if they are all one entity. But customers are different because they are impacted differently. And we need to have one-to-one marketing in order to make sure that every customer is satisfied. And SME brands must stay aligned with the general trajectory and shift towards individual and engagement, with understanding and addressing the widened array of consumer situations, preferences, and the needs that consumers face in this crisis. So what are some of the things that we need to consider going forward as SMEs? We all have to acknowledge, SMEs will have to acknowledge the complexity that past year has brought to consumers' lives and mindset. So this is something that's going to be indelible, mark on our consumers. It's going to live with them for a considerable period of time. So we need to acknowledge those complexities that consumers are going through. So don't add extra stress on these folks. Make sure things are smooth sailing and it's spot-free, so that the consumers will live up to expectations. We need to continue to learn through strategic two-way collaboration with your insights, analytics, and media partners. So whenever now, if you have an online platform, there is the likelihood that you get some analytics from Google and all these platforms that you are dealing with. Make sure you study these analytics, make meaning out of the data that we are getting from our customers, so that we can serve them well. Don't treat this data that you are generating from your website or any of your online touch points. Don't just throw them away. These are valuable insights. These are gold mine that we need to explore. If you don't have the capability to do so, get somebody, an expert in this area, to determine the information for you, so that you can get to understand your consumers, where they are coming from, and serve them well at the end of the day. We also have to adopt a more dynamic marketing approach with responsive marketing programs. So we need to meet consumers where they are. Not all things will sell this time around. Not all marketing communications will sell. Pick and choose the right tools that will help you serve your customers very well. And in all that you do as SME, you need to provide reassurances of safety and security. So when they are coming to your store, if there are protocols that need to be followed, you need to follow these protocols religiously, so that you don't be seen as cutting corners. The moment you start cutting corners, consumers will lose trust in you, and definitely it's going to affect your brand when things have normalized. So I'm going to leave you with something that perhaps you can consider if you are a SME owner or entrepreneur. Be present and invest in your consumer relationship this time around. Get to know your consumers more. They are home and they have some time. So if you have some customers, call them, find out how things are happening in their lives, and start building this relationship, because this is a social capital that you can leverage when things get normal. Be a source of truth and positive impact during this time. You don't want to distort government information. You don't want to distort any information that is coming through with regards to COVID. This is not a time for you to play ball. You need to stay truthful so that you can have positive impact on the people that you serve. The moment they get to see that you are cutting corners, or you are untruthful, or you are pushing back on some of these government regulations, people will pay dearly for it at any point in time in your business career. Show empathy and give comfort. Consumers are stressed. They are looking for comfort. So don't add stress onto their lives during this pandemic. Show that empathy. And we all know Nike at a certain point in time decided to close its stores for 2 weeks, so that workers can take leave and then enjoy themselves and rewind and come back to work. We've had Amazon policing the web to flash out bad businesses. Show empathy this time around. You don't want Amazon, shouldn't allow people to gouge consumers this time around. So they want to make sure that they flash out the bad notes so that consumers will not be swindled at this point in time in their life because they have too much on their heads. Help people constructively use time and build new routines at home. If there is any way you could use your product to support customers whilst they are at home, please do it. If there is any way you can, you can build a new product to support whatever people are doing at home, nesting at home, please figure that one out. If you are a food distribution company, find a way to make sure that consumers, whilst they are nesting at home, can take advantage of your product and build new routines for themselves. We need to recognize and affirm new social norms. If there are norms that we need to follow, the 6 feet and all those feet that we are talking about, the 2 feet, the 6 feet, whatever it is, make sure we affirm these social norms. If we have to be well masked, we have to be doing those things, in our stores and in our shops, so that consumers will look at those things, the new norms that are coming up, and get to know that this is the norm, and we are all following it. Learn from the past new normal. This is not new. There have been some pandemic that has happened in our lives. We need to go back and revisit how people handle these things. There's going to be a new normal. We all have to accept this, but we can always learn from history. So let's get it done. Learn and get to understand how some companies survive through things like this. And it's not too late to go virtual if you are not there as SME. Make sure you build your capacity in this area because that's where the customers are anyway. So make sure you are there to support them, in their consumption journey. So consumers are looking for brands for guidance and leadership this time around because some people are losing trust in government. So the only place to look at perhaps maybe could be businesses. So they are looking for brands that can support them. So it's just 4% of consumers think brands should stop advertising during the COVID-19 pandemic. So they don't want us to stop advertising, but our advertising messaging should change. Something that will bring community together, something that will bring reassurance, something that will connote safety to our customers. We don't want to mess things up. We don't want to add insult to injury this time around. So 74% want to hear from helpful brands, how they are dealing with this pandemic, how they are supporting their customers, how they are supporting their workers to sail through this pandemic. They want to hear from businesses. So as an SME, in all your messaging, you want to make sure that you hammer those critical pieces, how you are supporting your community, how you are supporting your staff to go through this challenge. And in fact, based on this research that was conducted by Real SEO, 72% feel that customers feel that companies have a social responsibility to offer aid this time around during this pandemic. And 71% want specific advice from brands on how to navigate through the crisis. So you are more or less a go-to person. People want to see how you can coach them, you can mentor them through this process. So become a shining example for people within your community. And we need to respect that. This is a mandate that these customers are giving us, and we don't want to disappoint our customers. And in fact, 23% want brand communications that make them feel safe. So these are all stats that have been thrown out there to reassure you that as SME, you have a role to play in the life of your customers. And let's embrace that concept. Let's take this thing wholeheartedly to support our customers once again as they go through this life journey. So in conclusion, for SMEs, they will require a stronger understanding of the spectrum of business or individual preferences that have emerged during the pandemic. So people have different preferences this time around. So we need to spend time to understand that spectrum of individual differences, because we don't want to treat customers as one entity, because customers are different. They are looking for a different value proposition, and we need to give them, what they are looking for. So the relevant question would not be how consumers buy, but instead what and where they buy. This is something that should engage our attention. It's not what they are buying, but it's not how these consumers are buying, but it's what and where they buy. And consumers are now making decisions, on the go, on the fly, on stable time of distress. So making them more likely to pay attention to brands willing to engage them in the right way. So we all know that there's clutter because there are all sort of noise when it comes to communication. But consumers are smart enough to sift through some of this messaging to figure out which of these companies are making the right, tone of voice and supporting the community or customers, and they will follow them. So that's how we build brands. This is the time for you to make sure that you assure your customers that this is an opportunity for me to build my brand. So wise brand leaders who are willing to be actively present can emerge from this challenging period of change behavior. So this is an opportunity for us as SMEs to emerge as, as winners, as brand leaders, because they are looking up to us to make some changes. So stronger brands and a more committed trust fan base is something that every brand is looking for. So when things eventually settle to the next new normal, brand growth can be sustained, and they are looking up to you. You don't want to disappoint them this time around, because you're going to be punished if they found out that you didn't support them during these tough times. So this brings us to the end of our presentation, of our conversation, this evening, tonight. And so your comments, suggestions, and questions are welcome this time around. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Opoku. So with the protocol would be that anyone with a question, you can either write your question in the chat and or raise your hands virtually so that we can invite you to ask your question. So let me open that. Then kick the question period, kick that off with a quick question for you. Is that I like to see the School of Business and the Small Business Center as small businesses in themselves, So I was listening carefully to what you advise, but it's a different type of business because we provide a service, education service. And we're in a special time, the time of COVID. How do you see those, the recommendations you made tonight come along for either the School of Business or the Small Business Center?
Yeah, thanks very much, Dr. Michelle. We are a player, in this ecosystem. So be it an education institution based, be it Lacombe based, be it radio based, we are all in this together. So I think this is the time for us to step up, because they need us, even in terms of education, telling them that they have our support. We have this free service that we could offer. We have a team that is prepared to support us. And in terms of doing research, gauging their mental health could be something that we as a small business can engage in. So this is also an opportunity for us to conduct research to gauge what is happening when it comes to these SMEs. So we have to be there with them. We need to make that noise that we are there and they have our support. And if that messaging is not coming through, we will be having problems when we get to the new normal, because we've abandoned the ship and there's no way they will come to us, because when they need us, we didn't support them. So this is the time for us to make noise that we are there for them. Whatever it is, let's make these services available. If they don't take it, we've done our part. If they grab it, it's an opportunity for us to start a conversation around building relationships and building the blocks together as a business school, with business center, a small business center, and also the business community. So let's approach the chamber that we are there. This is the support that we can offer to businesses, small businesses in times like this, and then we can start the conversation, going. Thank you. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
A couple of comments and questions in the chat. The first one from Sam, and he was asking, what are ways to market your e-commerce store?
Yeah, so when it comes to e-commerce, these days there are organic ways to market your e-commerce store. When I say organic, it means you will generate your own content, and that content will provide you with the customers that you're looking for. So in times like this, customers are smart. they know that anytime we approach them, there's the likelihood that we want to sell to them. So we need to change the way we look at things right now. We need to change the way we deliver value. And one thing I would like to stress is what we call content marketing. You want to create a platform where consumers think that you are the go-to person, educating them on their needs. And this is something that people always would like to jump in and sell something. Mm-hmm. Anytime we approach consumers, they think, this guy is coming to sell. I mean, I know what you are coming to do. Mm-hmm. So instead, let's engage our customers in a conversation, getting them to know that we are there to educate them to make their own informed choices. And when they found out that we educated them to make those informed choices, they will come to us when they are looking for a product or a particular service because they think we are experts in that area. So when we get to do that, creating those content, and I've seen somebody talking about plumbing, you could start talking about why, winter is coming. They need to make sure that your plumbing works this time around. Start a conversation around it. So anytime, when they get to know that you have a voice within that ecosystem, anytime people are looking for plumbing services, they know you are the expert and they will come to you. You are not selling your plumbing services, but you look at it from educating the customer so that they can make their own decisions around plumbing. And the thing is that they know that you are the expert because you taught them and they are likely to come to you when they need those particular services. This is not rocket science. This is something that has happened many years ago. And we've about 50 years ago, we have companies like Michelin and there's this company that I've forgotten. They started content marketing, educating farmers around the need, to have safe ties on the roads, because when these farmers are safe, they will make money and ultimately will continue to buy Michelin tires. So this is the way forward in that particular case. So the e-commerce website store, you don't have to start bombarding people with your products. Educate people around your product or in your industry, and it will serve as an opportunity, a conduit to bring people to the store. And then SEO, search engine optimization. If you have the right content on your website, you are talking about whatever thing that you are selling, educating customers about the value proposition. And sometimes we get it wrong as marketers or as small business owners. We need to tell consumers what is the reward of them patronizing our product. Sometimes we are so focused on telling them about the benefits and attributes of our product, but ultimately forgetting about telling them what is it that they are getting from your product. Let me give you a typical example. What is Coca-Cola selling? Or let's say a chewing gum company, Regulus. What is Regulus selling? They are selling confidence. They are not selling chewing gum, because what do you get out of chewing a gum? It boosts your confidence. You can speak to the loved one that you are, that you want to talk to. You can have that opportunity to be bold and confident. That is what you are selling. And that's what consumers are looking for. They are not looking for whether your product is blue, green, or it has this thing in this, that. Ultimately, what is it? So if you have e-commerce website, you need to focus on doing these things right. And then it will create opportunities for you to market those products. And of course, the technical thing, we can talk about those things later. Making sure you are on the right platform, you are hosted by the right entity. All those things can come. But these are things that we forget as small business whenever we are putting our marketing architecture together. We lose a sight of that, and we need to concentrate on that particular piece. Thank you.
Okay.
So Sam, we can talk about the technical stuff later. Okay. Very good.
All right.
Yeah.
Somebody was thanking you for your insight in time, and it is much appreciated.
Thank you.
And you answered the question about the service-based companies, such as plumbing company.
Plumbing,
I
yes.
think you answered that already. Another question is, what kind of security measures must you have when starting an e-commerce store?
Yeah, so Spotify, these days you don't have to stress. There are platforms that have already built, have already been built. So you just have to leverage those platforms. So Amazon can help you. Amazon small businesses can help you. So in terms of security, you want to be assured. You can't provide your own security. That is too expensive. So you need to tap into already existing platforms like Spotify, and they will take care of all the payment systems that you have, and of course, pay them a little bit. So in terms of security, don't attempt to work your own security. Platforms are available. They have established, the credibility in this space. And then, so take advantage of them. Talk to them, Spotify, call them up. These guys are smart. And in fact, I have some of my students working in this area, and so they can help you in that direction. That is what they do. And they can support you to open up your e-commerce platform and make good business out of it. And so leveraging those platforms, and Google can help you. Google Business can help you in this area. And of course, almighty Amazon, get in touch with them and they can help you, take your products to the next level. So don't hustle. It's too much for you to buy all those software and platforms. You can't. It's too much for you. There are others that you can use as a small business. I hope I've answered your question, Sam.